Today is November 25th, 2020. My name is Susan Kaplan, and in May of 2019, I was a 32-year-old single mother working as a client manager for a research and development company. My separated husband and I had 50-50 custody of my then 11-year-old son. One evening, I was watching a documentary series on Netflix. It was then I first saw and heard about Mckamey Manor. I did some research out of curiosity and was surprised to find that the owner of the manor, Russ Mckamey, had his phone number on his public website for the whole world to see. And in early June 2019, I gave the number a call. Russ answered in just a few rings. I totally did not expect this, but I was pleasantly surprised. And we got into a lengthy conversation where he was interviewing me to become a contestant. He told me that there was an opening that very weekend and that I should book a flight to be on the show. I was very excited for the thrill and for the opportunity, and I said, well, to hell with it. Why not? I booked my flight, and in the next 48 hours or so before my flight, Russ and I had several other conversations, both phone and FaceTime. Things did become a little flirtatious, but I was open to it, enjoying it even, and I was anticipating not just going to the manor, but I was also really excited to meet Russ Mckamey himself. And before I go further into this story, I want to make something very clear. I'm not making this statement for publicity. I'm not making this statement as a so-called hater. I'm making this statement out of concern and a sense of moral obligation for anyone dealing with Russ or individuals like him. As I continue, I think and I hope that you'll understand. Furthermore, I fully understand that after this is public, I may be viewed as a hater in some groups, and not only that. If anything, Russ should be issuing an apology to anyone he has treated or spoken to in a manner such as he did me. However, I seriously doubt that will be the case. Sadly, I think he's trapped in a victim mindset and he's incapable of remorse and also recognizing the damage of some of his actions and words. Continuing on, I don't want to focus too much on Mckamey Manor because that's not the purpose of my statement here. It's simply the medium through which the relationship between Russ and myself began. In only a month after meeting, we were very much infatuated with each other. I thought I was falling in love. He claimed to be in love. I was making an effort to see him every other weekend when I did not have my son, despite the distance. To let you know, I'm on the East Coast, right outside of Washington, D.C., and he's in Midwest in Tennessee. So whether it was flying or driving, I was there as much as I could be. He was extremely charming, very charismatic. I would even describe him as being chivalrous in the beginning. And I definitely didn't care about our age difference. I've always been one to believe that love is about the hearts that are involved. He would do things like ask me to marry him and then tell me just to say yes to play along. And at first I thought things like that were very endearing. But let's fast forward to the end of July 2019 and the beginning of August 2019. This is when some things really started to bother me. He would ask me to do a lot of things that I wasn't comfortable with, and with some odd explanations as to why. At this point, he had also confessed some of his own struggles, which I'm not going to reveal here because that's personal to him. And I felt protective. I wanted to be supportive. And so I didn't share or confide some of these odd behaviors and experiences with anyone else at the time. But just to give you some examples, to give you an idea, and I have these written down. He made me change my clothes multiple times when I was getting dressed on many occasions because his mind wasn't in the right place when I put on a shirt. I'm a vegetarian. One time we were at a buffet and he told me I had to eat a bite of meat or he would turn into sand, which is bizarre. But I refused and told him I felt he was disrespecting my lifestyle, and he started crying, saying I did not love him. He made me pick his teeth with my nails in a public parking lot and got angry when I went to wash my hands afterwards. And he, on many occasions, wanted to chew food and make me eat it from his mouth. I did not want to, and I never did this, but every time he got upset at me for it. During Manor activities and stunts, if there was something I did not want to do, he would tell me that if I did not do it, that I did not love him or trust him. There were many times where I obliged him uncomfortably, and he would just laugh. Like things like laying in the grass with a ski mask on my face, getting sprayed with water over and over, or submerging into cold water over and over. And in one particular activity, I confessed that I was actually afraid of dying, and he laughed and said that if I died, at least I would be on camera. And now we're going to get to the worst of it and the whole reason why I'm even speaking forward about this. Sometimes he would tell me that he had inappropriate thoughts about kids, and he couldn't help it. He would ask me to tell him that it was okay, or that nothing means nothing. His descriptions at first were really vague, and then slowly as time went by, became much more explicit. And in August of 2019 is when he started to talk about some of these thoughts involving my son. For example, is it wrong that I think about your son when I'm masturbating? Is it wrong that I think about your son's penis? Is it wrong that when I ejaculate, I say your son's name? Tell me it's okay. Tell me nothing means nothing. The first few times this happened, I was taken aback, but I had also been to the VA with him and spoken with his doctor to better understand his mental illness. The first time we went to the VA together, Russ specifically asked me not to talk about any of the thoughts he had about kids or my son because he was sure that they would put him away. Out of what I thought was love and understanding, I obliged at the time. I also need to make it clear that there were times I was really overwhelmed with conversations and interactions with him that I wouldn't return his calls for 2 to 3 days at a time. And he would message me incessantly, make it seem like it was my fault for not talking. And then when we did resume conversations, I was the one apologizing to him, made to feel like I was the one that had abandoned him. So lots of drama unfurled between September 2019 to the end of November 2019, where our relationship disintegrated essentially. Without getting into all of this, because I want to stick to the main point, Russ came to visit me early November 2019. Quite frankly, during this visit, it was the worst I'd experienced from him. There were a lot of issues going on with the Manor stuff on the side, which I know had him really stressed out, but this is no excuse. And I'm going to be blunt. Sexually, he was rougher than he'd ever been with me, leaving clear marks and bruises. He was also calling his other girlfriend daily while he was with me at my place, and I was supposed to say it was okay. He kept talking about sexual fantasies about kids. I was supposed to say it was okay. My son came up in these fantasies time and time again, and I was supposed to say it was okay. One of the nights he was with me, we were supposed to go to dinner with my son together. And I realized in that moment, I couldn't stand the idea of him meeting my son and looking at him with all the things that he'd said over and over, asking for my reassurance every time. I went to dinner with my son and left Russ behind at my apartment. I think it's then I finally realized how fucked up all of this was. And I could never let Russ be a father figure to my child. Also thinking especially the way he abandoned his own children and then villainized them for it. I mean, he's the parent. He's the parent. Unfortunately, I don't think that Russ knows how to take responsibility. In his world, in his mind, he is always the victim. It's one thing to have mental illness and have disturbing thoughts, but it is entirely another to explicitly express inappropriate thoughts about children, especially to a mother, where you include her child in those statements. Mental illness is very personal, and people that deal with it need to get the appropriate professional care. Instead of being honest with his doctors, Russ was taking out his worst, most nightmarish, dreadful thoughts on me. And I know I am not the only one that he's done this to. And when and if Russ hears this, he will feel that I have betrayed his trust. And this is not the case. I want him to get the help that he needs and be honest with his VA care team. Upon a lot of concern and a lot of reflection, I realized that Russ raised my mama bear protection radar from my own child, as I realized I never wanted him around my son for the worst fear that he could do potential detriment and damage. So my goal with this statement has several layers. I want to raise awareness about the reality of psychological abuse, mental illness notwithstanding. Russ has access to help that he does not fully utilize, and he is aware enough that he himself knows this. This is also not just about Russ. If someone is forcing anyone to do something they don't want to do, it's not okay. And if someone is talking about children sexually under any circumstance, it is not okay, ever, period. That person needs serious, serious help. Some of the most dangerous people historically are also charismatic and charming. And there is no shame in coming forward with the truth, with the right intentions. I did not do this out of anger, and I don't say these things with bitterness. I speak my truth because I think it needs to be heard, and too many people feel silenced by the power of another's oppression and manipulation. I hope that this helps anyone that's been too afraid to speak. I hope that others feel brave enough to speak if they need or want to. And I sincerely hope that Russ and others like him get the help that they need. Thank you for listening.